So right now we are in the West Bank. You would consider this Palestine, right?
Of course.
Do you like Hamas?
Of course. They are heroes. Freedom fighters.
They killed innocent Israelis. Yes,
No,
they did.
I denied killing babies. I denied the rape. We have right to resistance.
You may be in denial about what Hamas really is.
Who put this in your brain?
Let's talk about the current situation. So how do you feel about Hamas? Do you support them? Do you not like them?
I like Hamas because they free fighters.
Really? So you like Hamas?
Of course.
So you don't consider Hamas a terrorist group?
No, of course no.
Really?
Of course no. In America, how you see George Washington?
George Washington, I see him as, a fighter. But you don't think the tactics Hamas used on October 7th?
In our case, we have heroes. You can call them a terrorist, but for us, they are heroes. You see Braveheart, you know the movie?
I've actually never seen Braveheart. I'm not a big action movie guy. Have you seen the Barbie movie?
No.
See, we have different taste in movies. So what do you think Hamas did on October 7th?
What they do?
They killed innocent Israelis. Yes,
No.
they did.
No.
Yes, they did.
They have a right to do things, to do things because they are living under occupation. When you make
Israel left Gaza in 2005.
Sure. When you siege the area, when you forbidden people to travel for...
They forbid arms to come through. They want to control because there were a lot of terrorist attacks once Hamas retook power.
No. They
did leave Gaza. They fully left Gaza.
Hamas was in the democratic elections.
I agree with that. But there hasn't been an election since.
Sure. Okay, why?
Why? Because Hamas didn't let. They killed all their political opponents. That is true, my friend. That is true.
From where? Who put this in your brain?
I've read this time and time again. So you think there have been elections in Gaza?
Why there is no election in West Bank? Why? Because Israel don't allow to make the elections.
Israel has no control over whether Hamas has elections. Israel hasn't been in Gaza in 20 years. They left.
They don't make elections because they can't do it in Gaza without West Bank.
But they killed their political opponents. I've seen videos from them, again, Hamas videos out of Palestine.
Anywhere you can see a civilian war.
Do you not think that after what Hamas did on October 7th, we're further away from peace?
Okay. Hamas in 7 October make this because they have 7 decades of of injustice.
I've seen videos taken from Hamas, videos they filmed on GoPros. I've seen videos of them massacring innocent teenagers and people in their 20s and 30s at the Nova Music Festival.
If Israel have sure videos, they will publish it. In the Islam, they can't kill babies, they can't kill women. In the Islam, Hamas is an Islamic movement. Hamas not like Daesh, like ISIS.
It seems like they're almost worse than ISIS.
Media, because the Israeli media and American media make them like ISIS. This is kind of Palestinian victories to make the media in the world change their mind. The people now stop and return to think about the situation. Before October 7, everywhere you can go, Israel is the victim, and Palestinian is a terrorist.
I don't think people think Palestinians are terrorists, but Hamas is a designated terrorist group. I appreciate your perspective, and I hope I'm wrong, but I think you're in denial about Hamas. And I think the problem is we're probably much further away from peace because of what Hamas did on October 7th. To me, it feels like the only way we can actually get to some sort of peace is for everyone to accept the atrocities that have been committed. And if we deny what Hamas did on October 7th, it feels like we're just going to cause more friction, more denialism, and we're just going to be further away from any kind of peace solution.
I agree with them to do that because they have a right to resistance, to attack Israelis camps.
Even innocent Israelis?
No, we don't killing innocent.
But that's mostly who they kill.
Israelis prisoners when they released from Gaza, they was in their healthy in their.
You believe this? They're
course,
smiling. You think they were smiling being held
Yes,
prisoner? You don't think this is Hamas
what?
propaganda threatening them? They're terrified for their life.
Why when we talk about Hamas, you say this is a propaganda, but when we talk about Israel,
No, I haven't said that. Most of those people have come out of captivity now and have been interviewed on what their captivity was like, and they've said it's been horrible. Do you think the hostages in Gaza should be released?
you can't speak about 200 days in jails of Hamas in Gaza, and you can't deny.
But these people weren't in jails. I mean, they were thrown into people's houses in dark rooms. I mean, this was just, there was no system. One of the women was raped.
If you want to speak injustice, you need to speak about the big problem. The Palestinians was here from many thousands of years, and in night and day.
Were they called Palestinians?
What?
Was it called?
Of course.
Did you know that the word Palestine is not mentioned in the Quran, though?
Okay, in the Quran, but
And Israel's mentioned in the Quran over 100 times. In the Bible and in a lot of archaeological evidence, do you agree that the Jews at one point were the first people in this land 3,000 years ago?
I don't know. Nobody can know.
Palestinians have a special refugee status compared to other refugees around the world. Did you know that? Like there are kids today who are Palestinian refugees because their grandparents or their great-grandparents lived in that land, about 100 years ago, whereas that doesn't happen in other refugee scenarios. UNRWA gave them that refugee status. I think a lot of Israelis feel that's not fair that there is this many refugees. There shouldn't be. If this was in another country, they wouldn't still be considered this many refugees at all.
You can bring them to make a good life for them.
Okay, but just from a practical standpoint, Israel's not going to agree to that. So, the closest thing there's going to have to be is a two-state,
We give them most of Palestine, most of the land. We give them.
I think they feel a two-state solution would probably be a win for everyone, because then Palestine can finally have the peace it deserves. And Jews feel like without any state of their own, there is no protection for another Holocaust.
Why you want to give the Jews a land from us? Why? There is many lands in the world.
Okay, so when were you born?
82.
So you and I both were born much after 1948. So looking at the current situation, there are, millions and millions of Jews who live in Israel. There's 2 million Muslims who live in Israel, a lot of Christians, a lot of other groups. The current situation is that they're there and you guys are here. So wouldn't it just be the most practical way to get to a peace solution?
You can't start from the second to find a solution.
I understand, but we don't have a time machine. We can't go back 75 years.
We can't go back, but we can take this land and give it to the Palestinian refugees.
Do you believe that Israel wants to ethnic cleanse all Palestinians?
Of course.
If Israel wanted to genocide Gaza, they could. They have the weapons to do it. They could do what we did to Japan. I've seen videos from Palestinians that they've taken on the ground of Israel sending leaflets in Rafah to evacuate, of alarms going off telling citizens when to evacuate, texts going out when to evacuate so that they can destroy the Hamas tunnels. How is that a genocide? Jews went through the biggest genocide in human history. 6 million Jews died. Hitler didn't give them any kind of option to move out of the area.
They're doing that now.
Can I read you Hamas's charter?
Yes.
It says their number one goal is to kill Jews. I've read it from their own.
No.
That's their own words.
No.
The Hamas covenant goes on to say that Muslims must fight Jews and kill them, and that jihad becomes the individual duty of every Muslim in the face of Jews. Judgment Day will not come about until Muslims fight Jews and kill them. Then the Jews will hide behind rocks and trees, and the rocks and trees will cry out, "There is a Jew hiding behind me, come and kill him." Article 7 of the Hamas Charter. There's nothing in the founding documents of Israel that talk about killing Palestinians. I mean, how can you be supportive of a group that puts that in their constitution?
If you need to make an interview with a leader of Hamas, when you ask him what's the difference between Jew and Zionist, he will be a simple answer. The Jew is not our enemy. He will say that.
But isn't that just a mask for anti-Semitism? If 95% of Jews are Zionists, so you're saying I hate almost every single Jew. If I said I hate 95% of black people, am I racist?
Okay, of course.
Of course.
Black people.
If 95% of Jews around the world identify as Zionists, and there's a huge anti-Zionist movement happening here, and a want to kill Zionists, then isn't that hate? Isn't that anti-Semitism? Hamas is not keeping their crimes secret. They're publishing it to the world. They're posting it on their own channels. I've seen videos that keep me up at night. I encourage you to go look some of those up on your own. How much have you been following what's happened with the student protest in America? Have you been following that? Has Ramallah been following that closely?
Of course, yeah.
So that's big news here too, like Colombia, all that stuff. Oh wow, okay, that's crazy.
Many universities in America and Europe and everywhere.
How do you feel about the queers for Palestine? Would they be accepted in Gaza? Because they're very religious.
Hamas surely not agree.
Gaza's known for killing gay people. They're under Sharia law.
Not because Hamas.
You think Hamas likes queers?
No, no.
We both have to agree on that. They kill gay people.
No, not
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
maybe when they win in the and
You
make.
think they will win?
Yes,
You think Hamas is going to win?
yes, because many people, Palestinian people, like Hamas now. But when
That, in my opinion, is why now we are further away from peace than ever, because the West and Israel, they are never going to accept a Hamas-ruled Palestine.
Hamas will make the peace with Israel more than any part of Palestinian parties.
Oy. I just think we have to figure out to end the cycle of violence. The only way we're going to end that is to admit that both sides have done things wrong, and there has to be some point of moving on, or else how else can there be peace?
It's not strange to Hamas making peace with Israel because they are strong now. But when they win in Palestine and they control of all Palestine, I will coming to America.
You'll come to America.
Of course.
So you, okay. All right. Well, look, at least we have some common ground. I'll see you in the States. Thank you so much for this interview. Seriously, I respect your opinion, and I hope you feel like I respected yours as well.
بقول لك النقاط المقابله تكون اقصر